Well, hello everyone. I'm Connor. I'm 22, and we're here to talk about some personality traits that we took on the 16 personality website. My result was an ENTJ or a commander. I'm very direct, kind of blunt. I'm not very good with emotional stuff. There is a lot of strengths to that, but there also is some challenges, especially when dealing with other people. I might kind of come across as kind of insensitive, but I'm really not trying to be. It's kind of just I like to be rational about things. But yeah.
Sweet. My name is Maverick. I'm the other dude on this podcast, and I'm a mediator in the diplomat section. I'm an INFP, and I'm the complete opposite of what Connor is because, he just brought up insensitivity. I'm very sensitive. I know most INFPs are known for being sensitive, and I'm very in tune to my emotions. I consider myself an empath, and I know that's one of the characteristics of being a mediator. And I'm very, according to the 16 personalities, mediators are very creative and passionate in their lives, have a lot of passionate in their lives, and imaginative and, sensitive, all that type of thing, really in tune with their emotions and all that. And,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I definitely think, I don't know, I think there's a really good middle ground between at least our two personalities. There's definitely a point where you're too emotional, and there's definitely a point where you're too direct and just plain out rude. So
Right.
I feel like finding a middle ground between those two is really important, and I feel like it'll overall kind of help you communicate and navigate throughout, the world in general.
Right.
Doesn't matter what culture you're going into.
Absolutely.
I'm sure everyone appreciates the ability to kind of switch yourself into a different mode depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah, it's very situational. And, some people will appreciate one thing over another. Some people have their needs met in different ways.
Right.
So being able to, if you're just too emotional, people are going to know you for being too emotional. Some may even call you weak, like emotionally weak and all that. If you're too rational, some may say that you just don't care about other people's feelings, or if you're too logical and just only look at the facts. But, emotions are emotions and logic's logic. There's kind of a fine line that you have to meet. And I think it's also very situational. And I think it's cool that we both have opposite,
absolutely.
opposite.
I feel like,
types.
we've only known each other for 5 weeks now.
Yeah.
And I feel like we clicked right away, even with being complete opposites.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's I know the term or phrase opposites attract. It actually might be a real thing.
Yeah, no, my girlfriend, she took this test as well, and she got, I forget exactly what she got, but she got overly emotional. So, that kind of can lead to some little difficulties here and there,
Right.
just with communication, because sometimes I'll kind of view it as like, oh, you're being kind of a baby.
Yeah, but it's like you complement each other.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, and then sometimes she helps me get in touch with my emotions, because it's like, if I don't really know how to deal with other people's, I don't really know how to deal with my own. It's kind of just like, okay, be rational about this. It's like, don't think about the feeling, just think about exactly what happened, who was there, what was said, exactly how it was, and make your decision and conclusion based off that.
Right.
Sometimes when I need to be emotional, a lot of people who are like you and Ashley, my girlfriend, are very helpful and kind of directing me and okay, it's okay to feel this way, especially in this scenario. And in my mind, that just makes sense. It's like, okay, well, if they say it's okay and they sound pretty rational, then sure, I can feel something.
Right. No, that makes complete sense. Yeah. No, that's kind of how it is with the opposite side of the spectrum for me. I have a little brother and my dad. Actually, my oldest brother, my little brother, and my dad are very logical, very not in tune. My dad is an empath, but he has trained himself, and I think you talked about me a bit before this, how you weren't previously a commander. And my dad's kind of trained himself to just be more logical, more rational, and he kind of describes it as being more of a man, which, in ways I actually agree, because I think women are much more in tune with their emotional side than men are. And that's just a personal belief, but,
Right.
Yeah. And I think empathy is such a strong thing for me in my life. I feel like I've always adapted. It's like engraved in me. I'm always able to, look at a situation for someone else's eyes and just trying my best to relate with someone and, and just be a comfort.
And that's a really cool ability too. because I feel like I struggle with that.
Yeah.
Like, when someone's like really upset about something that I just view as kind of like nonsense, and it's like, okay, well, do you really need to be this upset about it? Do you need to be like shutting down mentally and physically because of this? And I feel like that's not what a lot of people want to hear.
Right.
Because in all reality, that's not really what I want to hear when I feel that way.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
in my mind, that just makes sense. Where it's like, because I feel like when I feel that way, that's what I tell myself. But like, I wouldn't want someone else to tell me that. But
Yeah,
it's
that
it's
makes
a weird
sense.
like complex that I feel like most commanders can kind of relate with. Where it's like, I wouldn't want someone to tell me what I want to tell that person, but I'll tell it to myself all day
No,
long.
exactly. Yeah, it's kind of like a double standard in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain that, but I know what you're saying. What were you before you were a commander? Do you remember?
So I haven't taken this test before actually,
Oh, okay.
but just, judging on like my behaviors and stuff, like, 4 or 5 years ago, like I definitely was a different person,
Right.
with lots of different interests and different social, standards and stuff like that. Like I didn't really like talking to people, and it was kind of like difficult for me to get out of my shell, and I wasn't super driven, but like now it's like overdrive. Like I'm going constantly. I'm never not doing things. Like I'm constantly like, I don't know. I kind of make this a goal, and this is just a mental goal, but every day I have to get a further, like one step further into my goal.
In your success,
Yeah,
basically.
it doesn't matter what the goal is as long as I'm successful and I've made one step further.
Yeah, so you're very, very ambitious.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I refuse to fail.
And it's interesting because I'm the opposite side of the spectrum when it came to this test, right? But I'm also very ambitious. But I think I am very idealistic. I have a big imagination. I daydream, right? And I know 16 personality says it a lot. I'm a big daydreamer because I'm just very imaginative of what I want to achieve in life, and I tend to be very ambitious, which I know didn't really get brought up much for my personality type, but I genuinely think I am. Like,
Yeah.
so many things. I pursue knowledge. It's like my favorite thing on planet Earth, and I've always just been super. I'm able to hyper focus on things. Like if I really have a passion for something, I go crazy at it.
Yeah.
But that's only if I have the passion. I do lack like self discipline, in a lot of ways, and all that. But yeah, and I think a lot of that this is kind of a weird rabbit hole I can go into, but my passion comes from me being so in tune with my emotions. I feel like I feel like a lot of it is emotional, and I think that might probably for a lot of people.
Well, and yeah, that's a great point. For a guy who's not super good at emotions, I am exactly like you in that way. I am so hyper fixated on stuff, and it could change weekly. Doesn't matter. But if it's weekly, I will know everything about it, and I will only do that for that period of time, and I love it. And it's like my release. It's like the way I get, like when I get nervous, anxious, frustrated, whatever. It's like that's my release. Okay, I'm hyper fixated on this. I'm good at this. I'm getting better at this.
Right.
Guitar, mechanics, dentistry, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's I have to be getting better, and that's what makes me happy. So
Exactly.
I guess that kind of falls back to it says on the webpage, it says, my approach to life is characterized by ambition and a relentless pursuit of success. And that describes me in a nutshell. Like I said, I refuse to fail, and I beat myself up when I fail.
Interesting.
And it's my fault and no one else's.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. You know what? I'm totally with you there in a lot of ways. Yeah, I don't know. Like with me, I hyperfixate, and it's very. I really don't know what the word is for it. I'm very just like. I don't know, passionate. That's the only word I can really think of. I just when I really am looking at something like I want to do, it's usually because of something like in my life where I know I can like relate to people, like or like cope, even if it's with my emotions, like astrophotography, which is something I brought up in this class. That's something I use to cope with.
It's like therapy for
Yeah,
you,
it's like
right?
therapy, and like you said, doing things that you love to do and that like you're good at, and you always want to be one-upping yourself. I had one of my mentors tell me that you need some just chill sometimes, and I'm like, I don't know. I always like to be, even if I'm doing something I enjoy, like even if it's gaming, You know, like you always try to be the best.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And like I'm just very ambitious, and I've always been pretty good at achieving what I set my mind to. At least in a lot of ways, the things I actually want to do.
Are you really hard on yourself when you don't achieve them?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think that's maybe a little commander in you.
Yep. I'm so. Yeah. That's so. I'm my worst critic for sure.
Because like I'll make excuses for everyone else but myself.
Yeah.
Because it's like I know I can do better, and then if I don't know, then I have to know. It's like, how can I avoid this in the future?
Right.
If I mess up, it won't happen again.
Yeah, I think a weird similarity between us two is that we're both perfectionists.
Absolutely.
Which is cool to see that
That's
both
shared
opposite.
between opposites. Yeah.
And like I people have described me. My parents have always said that I'm a perfectionist. I've known playing violin and just doing taekwondo and all these things. I've always learned that I'm a perfectionist. When it comes to school, whenever I write something, I think the reason I hate writing so much is because I'm a perfectionist. It needs to be perfect, and when I know that it like my brain just doesn't work sometimes, I'm like, it's not perfect enough. Screw it. I'm doing it later.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's how I be. And it's irritating, honestly. And I got to be more, self-accepting and forgiving of myself, but it's hard.
Yeah. No. And yeah, I mean, I think that's your specific personality coming out too, where you're saying, I need to be more accepting of that and like not be a perfectionist. When like in my mind, it's like, why wouldn't you want to be a perfectionist? It's like, why not take something that you are passionate about and make it perfect?
I feel like that's a better approach. Is that?
I don't know if it's necessarily a better approach.
Yeah, I think it's.
I think
more
it's
ways
just
to kind of cat in one.
It's a different approach.
Yeah.
I think it's specific to your personality type, and this is specific to mine.
Yeah, fair enough. No, that makes that makes complete sense. Because I mean, like, I feel like when I do let go of that grudge I have against myself, like I can't forgive myself, and I feel better.
Right.
And it helps me. Actually, I feel like when I let go of the outcome, I'm able to really, really dial in because I just don't care as much. But having that idea, like that, I think there's actually a fine line between this too.
Absolutely.
I think there's a fine line of knowing that you should do this because it's good for you and it's something you should achieve because you're pursuing success, but also not being so hard on yourself that when you fail, you get stuck in a zone,
right.
which I think is something that happens to me. Because like a characteristic that this webpage described as for a mediator was very introspective, like beyond introspective to the point where they're just going crazy in their head, basically. And sometimes it can be bad, and sometimes it's really good. And it's so true with anything.
Do you feel like it's like hectic, or do you feel like you can kind of pinpoint exactly what you're feeling, or is it kind of all over the place?
I think 95% of the time, no.
Is it something you can control?
Being introspective?
Well, so like, will you say, like in touch with your emotions, like, there's a bunch of stuff going on in your head. Is it something that you can kind of pinpoint, like, okay, I'm feeling this way because of this? Or is it something that's just kind of all over the place where it's like, okay, I feel this way, but I've done this and this and this and this? Is it like a conglomerate in your head, or is it kind of something you can kind of pick out and like kind of accept it that way?
It really depends, but I'd say for most of the point, I can usually pinpoint things. Like, I don't know. Sometimes, I'd say, especially as like the last like 5 months, my head's been quite a mess. It's been just really hard to understand what's going on emotionally in my head, mentally.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I can like, I can pinpoint. I think I overanalyze too much. It's one of my big problems. I overanalyze and overthink, but mainly overanalyze. I love to analyze anything. Like, I think that's one reason I'm so caught up in like stuff that it's such a big challenge and it takes like a lot of learning curves. Right. Like I don't know, anything. Taekwondo, learning how to do stuff. Anything. I mean,
taking
any
pictures
hobby.
Of stars.
Yeah, that too.
And naming them.
Yeah.
Like that's one thing that's really fascinating about you, that like what you're saying is like overanalyzing. Like, well, you kind of need to overanalyze to do those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you need to know everything.
Like your strengths and weaknesses should be applied to your life and what you should do.
Right.
And I think that's how we all find our passions and stuff. It kind of conforms to what we ourselves and our personalities and what we want to do. And that's why some things we don't enjoy, some things we do. Why some people are musical, some people aren't, some people, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And
no, I definitely think like I said, is that there's a really good middle ground between both of us, and I feel like that's really what people should try to pursue
I agree.
I mean, it's not always possible because you're never going to be able to please everybody. You're never going to be able to communicate with everybody. But if you
Yeah.
can find a good middle ground between rational and emotional, then I think you're in a good place to where you can really kind of get along with everyone and make new relationships and
Exactly.
things like that.
I think, you don't want to be a people pleaser.
Right.
You don't want to spend your entire life pleasing other people. But I think it's good I think what this class, communication really helps with is pushing your limits and trying to put yourself, it's almost just having empathy, but just learning how to communicate with people that are different from you, and growing into how to be something, not that you're not, because it's not like you're not being someone you're not, but growing, like expanding,
Expanding
learning
your
how to be more
arsenal.
logical for me, being,
Right.
yeah, like for me, it's like just trying to push away my emotions at times, look at the situation, and not get so caught up in my head over analyzing everything and creating scenarios because of fear or something,
Right.
and rather just look at the facts or
Well, I guess,
whatever it is.
I mean, what I've kind of experienced since starting this class is I'm kind of able to like look at past situations or even current ones where things may have gone wrong or with a coworker or whatever relationship, friend, whatever. And I'm kind of able to like look at it from like a bird's eye view and like
Yeah.
kind of see like, okay, well, what went wrong? How could I have done this any better? And like that kind of ties in with like perfectionism.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
me, it's like, okay, I may have said this and it kind of came off a little blunt for the situation, and that probably led to this, and this is probably something I could work on next time, which is kind of cool because I don't think I've really ever had that ability before kind of like learning different communication tactics.
Right.
Even just in the short amount of time we've been in this class, but it's pretty interesting for me.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like perception checking.
Absolutely.
I totally agree. Like I think I've analyzed past situations like 5 times now, just trying to understand things at a deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think it brought a lot of positive benefit to like finding that peace with that situation. Like I'm able to like let it fully go, if that makes sense, because I've come to a better understanding.
Right.
And so it's like, not saying I hold grudges, but like in my head, a lot of the time it would come back up like, oh, that happened in the past and now this is happening. So is this going to just be a continuous thing? But each situation holds its own issues and you got to just,
and I also think it kind of helps for future interactions too.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, okay, well, this didn't work last time, so let's kind of take a step back,
Different approach.
hold our tongue a little bit. Let's try a different approach, and that's been pretty successful for me.
I agree.
In my household.
Same.
But yeah, no, I definitely see a benefit of exploring other personality types and kind of learning how to interact with them and how you can kind of better yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a better way to put it. Like better yourself by being able to maybe try to experience it yourself in a sense, and like trying to push your comfort zone.
Right.
Rather than staying in this little personality, also just trying to interact.
Just don't be so set in stone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Be more flexible with who you are, because I think that's like a really attractive quality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you're able to relate with so many different people with the way they interact with others, then you're bound to have a lot of great relationships.
Yeah.
And it will help you with all of life, especially if like, I don't know, you're a businessman. You're going to be able to make better connections, better relationships, and then just down with your family or, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And still be driven and successful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely see where you're going with that. And yeah, I mean, I think that about covers it.
Yeah, it does. I think so.
All right. Well,
Sweet.
thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you for listening, guys.
Watching.
See ya.